Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Mortgage Maverick Show with me, Ash Borland. And in today's episode, we've got a bit of a treat for you today. We've actually got a new emerging software I've been sent the info about it. I was going through it. It's called MortgageX, and I was looking at the stuff it does. It's pretty crazy, actually, what this software can do. Anyone who knows me knows I love a bit of AI, and anytime we can get someone who's pushing the boundaries in the financial service industry about AI, knows that that's my wheelhouse. So as soon as this guy emailed me and said, I'd love to come on the show, it was an absolute no-brainer. I'm very excited to bring on Iftikhar. So this is Iftikhar. Welcome to the show, mate. I was about to dive into more stuff.
Thank you very much.
To the show.
Lovely to be here. Thank you very much, Ash. I've been following you for a long time, but yeah, it's lovely to be here finally. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for following me for a long time as well. That means a lot. So for people who don't know who you are or what it is you do, could you just give us a bit of context as to your kind of situation? Obviously, we're going to, as we said off air, we're going to dive very product heavy in this episode, talking very much about what you've done. It's very exciting, but I'd love to just get a bit of a background to understand the context of why you created this product.
My background is I'm an accountant. I've been an accountant for the last 15 years. We've been running our own company. But about 9 years ago, we decided to move into mortgage. We thought accounting was very paper heavy and a lot of red tape sort of thing. That's before we got into mortgages. We realized that mortgage is even more difficult because there was so much paperwork. I mean, if you walk into our accounting office, we hardly have any paperwork these days, except for the HMRC letters, which we scan and do away with as well, right? But then when we came into the mortgage space, it was so much work. So we thought we need to make some kind of a difference because there is tech out there, but I still think there's lots more that the industry, can offer in terms of tech, right? So that's why we embrace this journey and came up with this product. So that's the background.
I love that. And it's interesting you say the accountancy side, you think that's quite paperwork and driven, and then you move into mortgages. We were actually talking off air, actually, that idea that I think the accountancy industry is a good 5 years to 10 years ahead of the mortgage industry. And it's interesting, you being an accountant coming in, that is that like realization of, wow, this is even more backwards than I thought.
Yeah, that's right. It was a bit of a shock because I thought it would be quite advanced because banks talk about tech and things like that. But in the real, the back end of it, it's really not tech, right? It's way behind. But there's so much, we've seen all other industries, let's put accounting aside, they progress so much with tech, right? But I think there's a lot of things that we can do in this space for sure.
And do you have a tech, not background, because obviously you're an accountant, but is that a tech and things like that something you've always been interested in? Or is this something where you had to go, okay, we need to find the solution to a problem, and the problem is, the solution is tech, and I don't really know much about it. What was when you initially started, what was the kind of in understanding level when you obviously it'd be very different now, but when you first started?
Yeah, I don't come from a tech background because accounting is my background, and then obviously I'm in financial services. So I work with a lot of tech guys because I'm an accountant. A lot of my clients are tech-based, right? I always talk about tech with my clients. So, there have been clients who've approached me in the past and said, look, shall we do this venture because there is a cool idea I have, sort of thing. So likewise, I decided to talk to one of our clients, right, who's coming from a tech background, and he's the co-founder of this as well. And we decided saying, look, there is a gap in the market for this kind of tech, and let's do this together, right? So I think that was the perfect combination for us because tech-wise he's very tech-savvy, and he's up to date on things like AI and various other things that's happening. As soon as there's something AI that's in the market, he goes, look, shall we look at this? He's got that enthusiasm in it. So that made a difference for us. Yeah.
You do need to be as well with AI. You do very much need to be at the forefront of it. It's moving so fast that if you don't have someone like that in your team, people are outdated. Like this, when people talk about the ChatGPT or something like that, the stuff that most people, when they find it, it's very old by the time they're actually using it. So the stuff that your software does is quite advanced. It's very advanced actually. So let's talk a little bit about MortgageX. What is it? First of all, I found it really hard. I didn't know at the beginning how to pronounce it. I had to watch your video, which is very good. But I was like, is it MortgageX? And then you said, I was like, I'm just overcomplicated. It's just MortgageX, which I love.
No, it's true. Yeah, it's true, because I think it's spelled as MortgageX, but the logo is an E, so that makes it sound like MortgageX. Yeah, so that's what it is.
And so what is the software? So for people, just an overview, we're going to dive deeper into the tools and actually what it does and the features, but what effectively is MortgageX?
So what MortgageX is, it's an AI assistant, more or less, for the mortgage brokers and their clients. So that's what MortgageX is. So the idea is to take away a lot of these repetitive stuff that mortgage brokers do and a lot of the paperwork that they do. So that's the whole idea. So we are using AI to substitute all this paperwork and the work that people will have to do. For example, like the other day, we ran a mortgage application in 8 minutes, right? So end to end, we ran an application in 8 minutes, right? Obviously, that was a very straightforward application. It could take 10 minutes, 15 minutes as most. But some of the processes itself has been really cut down because we are using AI as well as the best tools that's out there. So therefore, that's how we managed to cut down. Now, from a context of a client, it's a massive amount of time they are saving, as well as the brokers, right? So it saves them a lot of time. So I think you'll see benefits for both your client as well as the broker itself, right? So that's how we've designed the product, but it's heavily AI based, and we've used the best tech out there so that we want to make sure that everybody's getting the best that's available. That's the whole idea behind it.
And so just to double click onto that, you're saying you're using 8 minutes is what I want to, I can obviously understand it. That's like you say, an easy example to do the application. Is that just because I've spoken to two different people in different parts of the AI kind of process? You're saying from the mortgage application, so you're doing the fact find, all of that stuff up until the submission of the lender. So it's up to the submission. It's taking 8 minutes.
Yes, that's right. So in the process, we do a credit search. We do of course, a soft credit search, which doesn't affect the client. We also do the ID verification. We download the bank statements. All of those things we do in that 8 minutes. So the client really has to put just basic information about themselves, but the rest of it, we auto-populate the fact finds for the mortgage broker. So the client doesn't have to sit there and say, okay, I've got these debts. They don't have to run around looking for their sort of loan statements or a credit card statements, because we use credit reference agencies to download these, right? So everything is auto-populated. So it makes life easy.
I love that. It makes me very excited, because I'm just thinking of this as like a pair with, and I'm sure you will know already, but I've got quite good relationships with MCube and Empowered. So those guys, and that's why I was asking you the 8 minutes, because they had 8 minutes, funnily enough, the same kind of number for full underwriting. And they were like, this is full underwriting. It's not risk-based assessment as like which brokers get wrong. And I think this is the thing to point out. Brokers don't understand that. They're thinking, oh yeah, Halifax takes a minute. What they're doing is, this is risk-based, no need to look at it. But they were saying with MCube, and they were saying that when they submit, it is 8 minutes for full underwriting to take place. And what my brain is going with this is, if you got 8 minutes to submit and 8 minutes to underwrite, that is a dynamite combination.
Because the tool is designed, so it's very app-based. So we use a phone, because obviously there's a massive movement from clients having to use a computer to a phone these days. A lot of people, the internet users these days, I think it's about, if you take people born after 1964, 80% of people use a phone instead of logging into their computer. So we've gone to that market. So your client does not have to have a PC. They can be sat somewhere in a garden doing their mortgage application, because that's easy, right? So we've done that. But also, like you said, we've built in underwriting in our tool as well. So as soon as the client finishes his bits, the broker gets a summary of the client. It tells you how much actually the client can afford. So we think the tool does underwriting even before it goes to the bank. Of course, bank has their own criteria. But if a bank tells me tomorrow, can you give me a client who earns who has a disposable income over £2,000 and has a good credit history, we can pick that client and tell the bank, here's your client, because it has that capability.
It's like a pre-underwriting process. It allows, it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, like pre-qualifying. I love that. That's so cool. So this is getting my nerdy things going. I love this. This is so cool. A brilliant way to spend a Tuesday when I'm recording this. I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, it is Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's a great call to have on a Tuesday. So wanted to dive in to some of the actual things it does, the things it does itself. And I actually said to you tonight off air, I was like, we're going to really do product focus because I will have a tendency to go really deep into what your background and all of this stuff. And I want to make sure that you guys listening to this get exactly what you have. So I have my notes in front of me on my iPad. The first thing we want to talk about is the Amy AI assistant, which is, and I would highly recommend, I'll put the video. I don't know if that video, is that video for public sharing or not?
Yeah,
the one that you sent me. Yeah, cool. So I'll put that video for people who want to learn more about it. There's a video that I watched that demonstrates this and it shows all the stuff you're doing on it. It's really cool. I'll put it in the show notes, people who want to watch that. But let's dive into the first one. So the AI assistant, also known as Amy, what is that and what does it do?
Okay, so I'll look at the closest alternative to Amy is Alexa or Google Home, Siri, those kind of tools. So what Amy does is something different to what Alexa and those tools do. So Amy is your AI assistant who can answer these repetitive questions that clients ask you. Often we get asked questions like, what's a fixed rate mortgage? What do you think Bank of England will do in the next meeting, sort of thing. So those are common questions you get. But you as a broker, you keep answering those questions repetitively. If you speak to 10 clients, very likely 5 people are going to ask you those questions. So this tool, if a broker is using this app, this tool is available to their clients. So the clients can ask those basic questions from Amy, and Amy will answer. Now, when I ask the head of tech, right, he says if you compare Alexa with Amy, it's actually an insult to Amy because Amy's capability is more, right? Because Alexa generally, I'm saying Alexa, but a lot of these tools, they generally answer a point-to-point question. So if you ask Alexa or Google Home, what's the weather like? It'll answer that question. But Amy can have a human-like conversation. So you can have a dialogue, right? We call it a dialogue flow, right? So you can have a dialogue flow between the client and Amy. For example, you can ask a question like, okay, I've got some debt, right? Can you help me with consolidating this debt? So it'll ask questions like, what's your debt? What's your mortgage balance? And it'll do calculations on the fly, right? So it's capable of doing that. It's very similar like having a conversation with a human. So it has that capability. So for the mortgage broker, it's not only simplifying the client journey, clients can keep asking questions from time to time from the app, and the app will answer. Where it becomes very complicated, obviously it'll transfer to a broker because the idea of the app is not to give client the final advice. The idea is to give them what they need, the tools that they need to get their basic questions answered, right? So that's what Amy is capable of doing. But Amy is obviously seeing that's actually for you to believe, right? So you definitely need to book a demo where we can show you live how Amy works. And everybody who's seen Amy likes Amy, right? So I think most brokers will love it.
I think that type of AI voice assistant kind of back and forth, to me, is inevitable. You can see that in the industry. And I think that's so cool to hear that you guys have made that. I love that. And I think that as well, in what line of work that I do, I always say to brokers, the questions you're getting asked all the time is everyone always has them. So if you've got that pre-baked into a service you offer, then this is your AI assistant. That's such a cool thing. I love that so much. And the capability then, are you finding from people who are using it already that people are using Amy a lot, or is it something that is going to take a little bit of time for people to adopt because it's so new?
Yeah, what we tell brokers is to encourage the clients to use that, right? So we see the statistics in the background. People are using Amy, and the brokers are saying that it's reduced the number of questions they have to answer. So what we tell brokers is educate the client saying, look, if you don't have me at 12 o'clock in the night, just tell them to use Amy. So that way, I think it needs a little bit of educating the client as well, because otherwise they're so used to asking questions from you, they'll come to you. So people who adopted that strategy, we are seeing some success. So that's really good. Yeah.
That's definitely, that's a good point to highlight. That is the people who listen to this, it's how much the advisor themselves are willing to let go of the reins, because in that scenario it is if you're like, just come to me for anything, then they will bypass those. And I see that in just like in basic tech in regards to like using voice notes. You just say to people, just stop calling me and just go through WhatsApp or this. Even straight away people are like, oh, so I guess it'd be even harder for them to get their head around the idea of giving it to an AI assistant who's going to help them. But I would say to the people listening to this, that is going to give you more time. It's exactly what you're saying here. It's going to save you a lot of time. It's tough to do those questions. It's tough to spend a lot of time answering these repetitive things that really you want them to come to you for, because you don't want them to Google it, but you also don't have the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, the way we built the platform is it has very current answers. For example, if Bank of England changes the rate, let's say on a Thursday, we will update it on the same day. So how it happens is it goes to the Bank of England website and it picks the details from that. Now, there are tools like ChatGPT, which is really good because I use it sometimes myself, but some of the answers can be outdated. But whereas we have 8 layers we built, so we go and get details from various sources and we qualify them as well. So because all of that happens in the background, the answers you get is going to be very accurate, right? So we are very confident that people will get very current answers as well.
I love that. The second thing we wanted to talk about is the intelligent fact finding. Yes. So the floor is yours. Let me know about the intelligent fact finding.
Yeah. So this is the bit that brokers really get frustrated about a lot, right? So quite often what happens with brokers is they send out a form, right? It's on an Excel or a Word document. Sometimes people send a link as well. And they keep chasing the client. Can you fill the fact find? Can you fill the fact find and send it back to me? Or can you still fill a form? Some people say that, right? So after 2 weeks, most people don't respond. You call the client and say, can you please fill it and send it to me, right? The client will say, okay, I'll do it. And they don't do it again. So in the meantime, the banks have already changed rates, right? So this happens. This is a very practical problem. Right? And then you chase the client saying, look, the bank's changing the rate this afternoon. And the client says, I'm at work. I don't have time now. I can't do this. And before you know it, the rate's gone, right? So we've simplified this process by introducing this intelligent fact find. So what the intelligent fact find does is it asks for basic details from a client, like name, address, date of birth, some very basic details, and the type of property that they're trying to buy or they're trying to do a remortgage for, and what kind of loan that you require, some very basic questions. So in the background, what it does is it verifies your identity then and there. It does open banking where it goes and downloads all your bank statements. And also it downloads a credit file and it does a soft credit search, right? So where a client has to fill what my credit card balance is, it goes to a credit reference agency and pulls that number to the fact find. So the client doesn't have to run around looking for their credit card statement from last month. Or if they have loans, they don't have to look for a loan statement to see how much loans outstanding and how much did they actually borrow, right? And how much do they pay for a month? Because banks sometimes can say you need to put the exact figures, right? So they don't have to worry about it at all because we use these external sources to populate the fact find. So that's why it's an intelligent fact find. So you don't have to be running around trying to do that. And if I use the same example as before, you can be sat in a garden and you can be filling your fact find because you don't need any documents to fill this, right? So that's how easy it is.
It's so interesting because there's so much to unpack with that, because I know that there will be people as we go through these, my friends, concerned in some ways of going, this is taking away their job because you're doing this. I'm going through going, this is getting more real and real each time. This is really cool. I love this.
Yeah.
What would you say to advisors who say that? Because I'm sure you're going to have that pushback. You probably had that pushback already. That kind of fear of this is doing all the things that I think my job was. What was your answer?
Obviously, that'll be the initial reaction. Like back in the days when I was young, when computers were properly introduced, people used to say, okay, this is going to take away my job. when AI was introduced, people said, this is going to take away my job, right? But it hasn't. It's created more opportunity, right? So as a mortgage broker, this is like an ambassador for you yourself, right? Because you are using the best tech, you're giving it to your client, and he's going to love you because previously he spent 2 hours trying to fill a fact find. Now it's all done in 8 minutes, and he's got almost 2 hours for himself now, so he doesn't have to worry about it. He goes and tells his friends that, look, I've used this broker and he's got this tool, right? So that helps you. And because you have less checking to do, because the information that you're getting from the credit reference agencies and all that are very accurate, you have less work to do then, right? So because you have less work to do, you can go and find another client, right? And this is the example I always use. I've got a broker who signed up very recently. He says, I've never sold insurance, right? Because I don't have the time to do that. So why don't you sell insurance, right? Because that's the first thing I told him, right? And he's actually doing it now because he does have the time, because he said, I've got so much mortgages to do. I don't have time to do insurance. So you can do things like that. So it's going to help your job even more, right? If you're thinking of scaling up, definitely it's a tool for you to have. And the image it creates with, that with the client of yours is going to be something else, because that's the feedback I'm getting from the brokers who've signed up, right? So I think it's a great thing to have. And I don't think it's going to take away your job. It's only going to make your job look better. Like it or not, AI is here to stay. And I'm one of the early adopters, but I'm sure there'll be more and more people who will be doing this sort of stuff, right? So I think we'll have to start embracing this for sure.
I couldn't agree more. I'm a big advocate of it. It's interesting it's just interesting because I know that people listening to this will feel that way. And it's interesting your background duality of being in the accountancy space and then also in mortgages, because a lot of the stuff people I speak to and the stuff I listen to around AI talk about accountants actually as the example of jobs where there's a lot of tasks that actually this shouldn't affect the accountancy industry as much as actually allow the good accountants to just serve more people, because it removes that busy work, the work that's very hard to do. And that's what's interesting. I'm listening to this and talking to us now going, oh yeah, everyone I know who we're talking about, we're looking at their marketing strategies, we're looking at their networking strategies, we're looking at their insurance strategies. The biggest complaint I get is I don't have enough time. And actually what was going through my head, and then you said that example, was like exactly that, is like this would fix that. This would allow them to be making that content, be going out there and speaking to networking and doing things like podcasting and stuff that then allow them to vastly speed up the back end. So I think it's awesome. It's just, you're going to get your skeptics for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, obviously, people don't like change, right? So if there is change, people are a little resistant, right? So there will be skeptics for sure. That's something we expected. But by and large, I've had demos because we launched on the 15th. By and large, the response has been really good, right? There's a good uptake. And I think, like I said, the space will change, right? I'm sure there'll be other competitors who come up. They might have different propositions. But as of now, I think there isn't any close alternative, right? So I think we are doing okay for now. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. There's just so much stuff on you that you do. So the next one we've got that you want to dive a little bit deeper on is the intelligent sourcing. Yeah. So take the stage with this one.
Okay. So remember, I keep talking about this 8 minutes, right? So once you do put in all your details and we pick all the details from credit reference agencies and the open banking, things like that, we can figure out who this client is, right? So because we can figure out the client, we will know what products will suit these clients more. So because as a mortgage broker, we know we go into some sourcing tool and you download the sourcing, the results, and you look at the results saying, okay, A is not going to work because this person gets bonus. B is also not going to work because his bonus is quarterly. And you go down the list to see which one works best. So what this is trying to do is, because it has all the details of the client, it's trying to pinpoint the product that's actually going to work for the client, right? So it'll actually eliminate A and B, and it'll show you go with C, right? So it gives you that detail to the broker. So it makes life easier because, for example, contractors, I deal with a lot of contractors. I've done it in the past. We know day one contractors wouldn't work for many banks, right? But some banks will accept a day one contractor. But because we built in criteria into the sourcing, it'll pinpoint saying, okay, you'll have to go to this bank because this is the only bank who's going to give it, or these are the 5 banks who are going to give it. But the cheapest out of the 5 is bank A, right? So it'll give you that kind of answer. So that's why we do intelligent sourcing. So when I compare, I always compare with like a price comparison site, right? Price comparison site always tells you what's cheap, right? But it won't tell you based on your circumstances. So we take into account circumstances and then pinpoint these products, right? Obviously, as a mortgage broker, we always say, go and qualify those products. But we think because we built in sourcing, the answers are more or less accurate.
I haven't got much to say about that one. That's just so cool. It's one of those where I think it's brilliant. It's so cool. Let's move on to the next one because I've got some other stuff I want to ask you about as well. But it's this. Sure. The other one we have is the all-in. You've got here is all-in-one CRM. Yeah. So just explain a little bit about what you mean by all-in-one CRM.
So all this time we've been talking about an app, right? So this app. So you think it's an app, but it's not an app because what happens is this goes and populates all the information that you get about the client in a CRM. So we built a CRM. We built it around Salesforce, right? I'm bringing up the word Salesforce because Salesforce is supposed to be the best CRM system in the world, right? They claim that. So you have access to the best CRM system in the world. So all this information goes and populates. So it'll tell you what the client's credit rating is, what their payments are, everything in the CRM. So you don't have to worry. And even once the product is selected, suitability reports, all of that is generated on the CRM. So a lot of people will think it's an app, but it's not, right? That's why we call it an all-in-one CRM. The front facing is just the app, but everything else is in the back end it goes and populates a CRM. There are clients who've told us that we want to integrate with other CRMs. That's not a problem. We can do that. But obviously, we recommend that most people use the Salesforce because the beauty of Salesforce is that Salesforce is very customizable, right? So if people want a report, like a mortgage broker wants a report saying, okay, I'm in a good mood. I want to send somebody a hamper today. I just want to see whose birthday it is today, right? You can, pick that level of detail with no assistance, right? So you can do it yourself. But of course, if you can't, you can tell us. We can give you that report, right? But a lot of the CRMs out there are a lot of good CRMs out there. I'm not condemning anybody. But most reports are defined, right? So you can only take from that defined. But the beauty of using Salesforce is you can define reports yourself, right? So you don't have to rely on somebody's report. You can create whatever reports you want from there because you have vast amount of data. Using that, you can create your own reports. So that's the beauty of it.
I love that. It's the thing with CRM is so interesting because there has been, I actually was talking about this on my solo podcast, which is called Mortgage Business Mastery. Anyone who hasn't listened to that, and we're actually talking about one of the trends. What I'm seeing is there's a massive move for brokers to get their own CRMs, so not to rely on the networks or to rely on the third parties or the ones they're given, but actually having a proper CRM. And there's been a few people who are making plays in this space, trying to make it work. I think what you're doing here is so interesting because if you've got an app that is customer facing, that is filling in all this information that we know is accurate. I'm just echoing what you're saying, but it's for the listeners. It's accurate. We know it's sourcing to the most recent data at the point in which they put it in. And then it's just pre-populating your CRM in the back end. So it's two different, that's a no-brainer. In fact, it's very similar to when I found, it's not the same thing, but it's a similar thing of like when I do coaching calls, I use Fathom, which is AI note-taking. When I got that and realized it was like, I could have all sessions recorded and noted and actioned. And it was like, this is amazing because everything is being taken from the call. I don't have to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're saying about the CRM, that's what's going through my head is how much my workflow has changed just from using Fathom, of being able to be like, that's everything I said. There's everything I need. And I haven't had to add extra stuff in. I just open it up. I've got one in front of me right now with the client's notes. And that works really well for coaches but it's not for the mortgage industry. The mortgage industry, we need all this stuff. We need all this data.
Yeah.
So if they're, I think that's brilliant. That's a brilliant tool. Like it sounds amazing that. And I've seen they actually, as you say, as we said earlier about the video, you actually have a small demonstration on the video about what that would look like. And I'm sure obviously if people want a demo, they can come to you guys for a demo, but I think that's wicked. So anything you wanted to add to that before I dive in to the next question?
No, I think
Cool.
you summarized that, Ash. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. I realized I was about to run off onto something else. If I make sure so the question I want to ask you is, how does this work from I'm a broker, they say I'm a broker, I'm part of a network. So there's DA and there's network. Obviously with the DA, they could just take this straight away and run with it. I'm very aware of that. With a network, how does that work? Is it compatible right now? Do you have to be network specific, or is it pretty available to everybody? What's the kind of state of play right now?
I think some networks allow you to use their own software, right? Because we are in conversations with some of the clients. They're happy to allow you to use their own software. So I think it's fine. But some are quite specific, saying you got to use our own thing, right? Because obviously it connects to their billing system and various things, right? So we are starting to talk to networks, and we are hoping there'll be some space, a change in this space as well, where networks are trying to get this, right? So if that's the case, they'll have access to our thing. But yeah, where people are open to move, which networks allow you to open to move, I think this will work for them for sure, right? But watch this space. We are talking to quite a few networks at the moment, and we might see some of them sign up as well, and you'll have access to this. Because I think everybody's got to move ahead with tech, right? Because otherwise the industry is falling behind. I think everybody needs to embrace tech for sure.
They do, and you are very much on this call. Like I said, I've done a little bit of prep work before. We were introduced by a mutual friend. This is the first time I've seen something like this that is actually working and out there. I've heard lots of people talk about how they'd like this to happen, but to actually, and I will be completely skeptical to people listening. When I first got it from you, I was like, here's another one of the people. When I saw the video and I was like, cool. I've seen these before. Like people always say it's going to happen, but no one's ever taken it to the finish line. You guys absolutely have. It's out there. It's working. It's in use. It's very exciting. And I would echo what you say, that networks will have to get on board. I just know that there's going to be people listening to this in different networks. Certain networks I know who are very strict. I won't mention any names. You will go, I really wish. It's a little bit like when something releases on Apple only and you can't have it because you're on a PC. It's a little bit like that. But it would be very interesting to have you on the show in a number of months' time to see the state of the union is at this point with this. Because I think that, and if that's something you'd be interested in doing, because I think it'd be really cool to touch base every 3 to 6 months to see, like, really 6 months ago, like, where are we at? Because I think that actually the adoption of this software could be very widespread. And I think that it'd be interesting for the brokers to hear that and hear the story of how it actually is going, because it is what I would say. And I'll pass it over to you in a minute. But what I would say is my take on what we've already gone through today is, it's not that it's some sort of, it is amazing, but it's not as amazing. It's what is necessary. I think that's the thing. It's what we need. And it is amazing, but to say it's amazing, I think downplays the reality that actually what's happened, in my opinion, is fintech across the board has got away with not doing good stuff that's relevant for us, which is what you said at the beginning. It's very archaic. And this is exactly what we should have. Not just what is, wow, it's an amazing piece of software. It's actually, no, we should have had that. And the fact that it's taken this long to get to it is criminal. I think it's brilliant that you've done that. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if people want to learn more about, anything you'd like to add, by the way, before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, obviously, like I said before, tech is changing and there's so many tools out there. I think it's time that the industry embraces this, right? Because obviously there are stuff we have to do in the industry which we don't have choice, right? Because fraud is pretty big. We got consumer duty and we've got so many other stuff, right, that we have to. So tools like this will actually help you, because if you take this app, it has a fraud prevention tool built in, right? So if, for example, a lot of people might think when you do ID verification on the phone, it's just a verification, but it's not, right? Because what we do on our piece is we look at the movements of the face. We move, if somebody's taking a picture of their passport, it's looking at the movements of the hand. It's trying to identify whether this is a real person and it's not a fraudulent case. And if I'm using this device, it'll pick what this device is, and it'll see whether there's any fraud associated with this particular device, because the fraudsters are likely to use the same device. So it goes into that level of detail. So, as brokers, like with fraud, it's quite big, right? If you get caught innocently, like sometimes there are brokers who are innocent who's got caught with fraud because they couldn't detect it, right?
Yeah.
They can be off panel, right? If a broker is off panel, before you know it, all the other banks will put you off panel as well if one bank picks you, right? So that means you're on the road in no time. It only takes a few minutes for you to get off panel with all the lenders, right? So it's that bad. So I think I'm telling people to use tech, right? Because tech can make life a big difference. We have seen it in the accounting field because I've been there. We use a paperless office these days. So I think it's time that mortgages did that as well. We need to get away with using paper and various other things. So this can be just a starting tool. There'll be other tools, I'm sure it will come up in future as well. But I say use tech. It's only there to change your life, right? And it will make a big difference. I strongly believe in it, and I've seen evidence of that as well, right? So I think people should embrace this for sure.
It's great. So if people want to learn more about it, they want to learn more about what you guys offer, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, of course, they can book a demo with us on our website. That's mortgagex.ai. That's our website. So MortgageX is spelled, I think you asked this question before we spoke, right? We've replaced the mortgage with a logo, right? So it spells as MortgageX, right? So that's how it's spelled. But you can look at our website. But of course, we are in all kind of social media as well, right? So you can easily look up for MortgageX and book a demo, and we'll show you how it really looks like in the real sort of thing, right? So I think that will definitely help you.
I love it. It's been absolutely great having you on. I'm blown away by what you guys have done. I'm very excited to see where it goes. And I just wish you all the best with it. I really do.
Thank you very much, Ash. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.